Michael Marcantonini here on the IronBirds broadcast network. I've got IronBirds catcher Ethan Anderson joining me. Ethan, I had you on once earlier this year. Good to have you back. How's everything feeling post All-Star break right now?
Yeah, it's been great. The All-Star break's amazing, just to give all the guys, coaches, a couple days to just, go to see their families, take a little break, go to the beach, and then come back and play another half.
I know you've dealt with some nagging injuries this year. The hamstring has been acting up a little bit. On top of that, just playing your first full season of pro baseball, long mental grind, physical grind. How have you balanced it all?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the first-year guys that got drafted last year or, first time at an affiliate, this is kind of the first experience of being at an affiliate. And so, we're learning what the days are like, what an actual baseball grind is. It's not like college where you're playing 3 on the weekend and maybe a midweek where, every day you're playing a game and every day, you got to get your work in. So there's a lot of things to take care of. Your body's one of those. And, I've dealt with some injuries throughout this year and, in the future, how to prepare and avoid those injuries.
Was there a point this season where you realized and it hit you like, wow, this is a lot of baseball. Like, I've got to do some things differently than I did in college?
Yeah, I think like the first month, you're just excited. You had a long off season just away from baseball. Spring training, you're just practicing every day, where the first month, you're just excited to go out there and play baseball games. And then eventually it kind of hits you of like, you don't have like a day or two to regroup or, find your swing in the cage where you're playing every single day. And you got to find a routine that'll put you in the best position to compete each night.
Let's talk a little bit about switch hitting. I know we did a little bit of that the first time I grabbed you for an interview. And in that interview, you told me that as a natural right-handed hitter, you think you hit the ball harder righty, but you've got a little bit more natural loft in your lefty swing. So based on that, I mean, what kind of work do you put in on one side or the other, knowing those two things?
Yeah, I think it's challenges that I'm continuing trying to figure out. Develop both sides. I'm more flat on my right-handed swing. I think that's just growing up. What you're taught as a little kid is hit line drives to the second baseman. Where lefty, I kind of was on my own for a while, and naturally it was just trying to hit the ball as hard as I could. I wouldn't say trying to change too much, just playing to what makes each swing unique.
You told me that for a while you tried to model the lefty swing after Bryce Harper and the righty swing, maybe a little bit of Mike Trout at one point. Are there any specific switch hitters in the big leagues now or growing up that you truly studied their game and saw how they did it from both sides?
There's definitely a couple guys I've got to interact with. Nick Swisher a long time ago when I was a lot younger, honestly, before I started switch hitting. But talking to those guys and figuring out the balance between the two and how to understand, hey, they don't have to be mere copies of each other. Just putting it and creating an identity between the two swings, I think has really helped me throughout my career.
There's one switch hitter in the big leagues just absolutely dominating opposing pitching this year, and he also plays catcher. Obviously, Cal Raleigh with the Seattle Mariners. Just from your perspective as a switch hitting catcher, how crazy is it to see what he's doing with the bat?
Yeah, Cal Raleigh really hit the scene a couple of years ago, especially being in college and minor leagues and seeing that he's doing it at the professional level and, might be an MVP this year. That's kind of proves that it can be done. It's very impressive, what he's doing, playing platinum glove defense and, leading the league in home runs, being a switch hitter. And it's not just it's on the left side, he's hitting them from both sides of the plate. And, I would say that's a difficult position where, the amount of time that goes into, being a catcher, prep with pitchers, understanding that that's a pretty difficult and taxing job to play on the field. And then also having two swings, the amount of workload that is. And, I'm learning how to do that every single day at the high A level, and he's doing it at the major league level and doing it at an MVP caliber.
Well, there's another stud switch-hitting catcher in the Orioles organization, Adley Rutschman, of course. Have you gotten a chance to spend any time with Adley or talk about all those things with him?
I haven't been able to really sit down and ask. We've crossed paths maybe a few times, but it's definitely cool being in the same organization, working with the same guys that developed Adley, and being able to talk with those guys of what made him, an all-star. And the great player that he is. Hopefully in the future we'll have some time to sit down and I can pick his brain about being a catcher and being a switch hitter.
Knowing both of those things, that you've got to get cuts in from both sides of the plate and get your catching work in, which for a catcher is the most important thing. What's different about going about your business as a professional versus as a college player?
I think the intentionality, you don't have to worry about, studying for an exam or doing your homework, where everything that, I'm doing is focused on the season and developing as a player and as a person. With such a high workload, I try to be very intentional about, stuff I can control, how much sleep I'm getting. And also, working smarter, in the cages, understanding my body's going through a lot and kind of not taking reckless swings, but being very intentional on the drills that I'm doing or what I'm attacking each day. I think that's part of, growing up and going through the minor league system is, what makes you the best player, best person, and whether that's, journaling or, looking at game review or understanding, the best ways to get to the next level.
Between college ball and now pro ball even more, you're on the move a lot, road trips, going to different levels. And I know that you're pretty used to moving around a lot. Your dad was in the Navy, and growing up, you moved to a bunch of different U.S. cities. You lived internationally a little bit. Of all the places that you got a chance to live, do you have a specific favorite?
Yeah, a lot of moving around happened when I was younger. It's part of, my childhood and, kind of the person that I became. But I would say Virginia Beach has been my favorite. Spent the most time there. That's where a lot of my friends are. And, my grandparents on my mom's side are 5 houses away. So we were really close as a family. That's where I have a lot of my memories growing up. And a lot of the big decisions I've made so far has been in Virginia Beach, where I went to college. But it was all focused around living in Virginia Beach. And it's a great place. Everyone lives on the water. So I had a bunch of friends with boats, and there's a lot to do.
I know you said that a lot of the moving around was when you were young, so you may not have stayed in a place very long or you don't remember much about it. But of all the places you lived, are there one or two places that you'd love to travel back to and see more of it?
Yeah, that's funny you asked. Especially being a professional, you have a long off season. Or in college, you have fall ball. You get maybe a month back home during the winter. Not really enough time to really do anything. Plus, you got to stay in shape, and then you're playing in the spring. And once that's over, you're playing summer ball. This upcoming off season, hopefully going back to a few of those places. Trying to go back to Europe. I haven't been since I was 5 or 6 when we lived in Italy and in Portugal, but going back over there and experiencing those cultures.
That's awesome stuff. Well, Ethan, we're going to wrap up this interview with a fun trivia question round, and we're going to stick with the theme of switch hitters. Now, don't worry, it's multiple choice. All right, first question in this round. Who has the most home runs by a switch hitter in MLB history? Is it A, Mickey Mantle, B, Eddie Murray, or C, Chipper Jones?
It's got to be between Mickey Mantle or Chipper Jones. I'm going to go with Mickey Mantle.
Okay, you got that one right. Mickey Mantle, 536. All right, number 2. Who has the most home runs by a switch-hitting catcher in MLB history? So this is home runs hit as a switch-hitting catcher. A, Jared Saltalamacchia, B, Jorge Posada, or C, the Hall of Famer Ted Simmons?
I'm going to go with Posada.
Yep, you got it. Jorge Posada had 203 while playing the position of catcher. All right, question number 3. Who was the last switch hitter to win an MVP award? A, Jimmy Rollins, B, Jose Ramirez, or C, Francisco Lindor?
I don't think Jose Ramirez or Francisco Lindor has won an MVP, so I'm going to go with, was it Jimmy Rollins?
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I tried to sneak a couple in on you. Neither of the other guys have won it, but Jimmy Rollins did it in 2007 with my Phillies. All right, question number 4. Who is the only switch hitter with both 500-plus home runs and 3,000-plus career hits? Is it A, Mark Teixeira, B, Mickey Mantle, or C, Eddie Murray?
500 home runs and 3,000 hits. Yep. Got to go Mickey Mantle again.
This one's Eddie Murray, the O's legend, but good guess. All right, question 5. Who is the only switch hitter with 300-plus homers and a 300-plus career batting average? A, Carlos Santana, B, Chipper Jones, or C, Ted Simmons?
I'm going to go with Chipper Jones.
Yep, you got it. Chipper's the only one with 300-plus homers and a 300-plus career average. And then the last one for you, not multiple choice, but I don't think you'll need it. Who is the highest drafted switch hitter in Orioles history?
I'm going to go Adley. I don't think you can go really higher than 1.
Yeah, you can't go higher than 1-1, 2019. So there it is. 5 out of 6. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
A one hard hit grounder, fair up the first base line into right field, and it's into the corner. Anderson around first, heading for second. Now he's thinking 3. Ball got stuck in the corner. Anderson chugging along, and he's in with a triple.
All right, so that'll do it. Ethan Anderson from the IronBirds joining me on the broadcast. Ethan, thanks so much for your time. Continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.